Okay, so let's talk drivers and specifically how you can hit your driver straighter and longer. So there's three key elements that we're going to look at here to get you hitting your driver straighter and longer. And that is the strike. So where you're hitting it on the club face makes a huge difference to the direction and the distance the ball goes. Your spin loft, okay, so you might not have heard that terminology, but that is the difference of the angle between the angle you're hitting down or up into the ball and the loft that you're putting on your driver when you're hitting that ball, so your dynamic loft at the impact. And also we're going to talk about your club head speed, because that's obviously a big factor as well. And another effect that the club head speed and the strike will have on the ball as well is the ball speed. Okay, if you've got low ball speed, the ball's not going to go very far, no matter how fast your club head speed is. If you're not hitting the middle of the club face or anywhere near the middle, then your ball speed is going to be down, which is going to make the ball go a lot shorter. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the strike. Now, if you're hitting it at the center of the club face, your ball speed is going to be up. But if you're missing the center of that club head speed, that ball speed drops dramatically, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But also, it does affect the direction. So the club face has a bulge effect on it. Okay, so it's not the face isn't straight. So that's to help you. Now, if you strike it out of the toe, that will put draw spin on it, so it will curve it hopefully back towards target. If you strike it out the heel, that will put fade spin on it, so it'll curve it straight back to target. So if you're let's say you're a fader of the golf ball, so you swing left of target, you probably leave that club face a little bit open to your path, and you probably strike it somewhere kind of at the heel or the middle to then bring that fade spin on the ball to bring it back to target. Now, if you're swinging left and you strike it at that toe, then that toe is going to put draw spin on that ball and you probably miss the target left. Okay, so we've got to use the club face to our advantage. But also, like I said before, missing the middle of that club face will really affect the ball speed. And like I said, we'll take a look at that in a second. Now, spin loft. Okay, the spin loft is the angle of attack you're hitting into the ball. So if you're hitting down into the ball or up into the ball, and the loft that you're putting on that driver. Okay, so we'll also take a look at that in a second. So let's talk about strike first. So I'm going to hit a couple of drivers. I'm going to try and hit some at the middle, hit some at the heel, and hit some at the toe. And let's see what difference that makes on the direction the ball goes and the speed that the ball comes off of that club face. So let's just hit a couple here, and we'll see on the TrackMan how they go. Okay, so that one felt okay. Okay, so let's just have a look on the TrackMan there. So that one, yeah, middle, slightly at the heel, and it's curved a little bit. So let's just hit another one. We'll take a closer look on the TrackMan in a second. See if we can get one a little bit out the toe. Okay, so let's take a closer look at those strikes there. Okay, so let's talk about the strike and what effect this has on the ball, the direction it goes and the distance it goes. So here we've got a reasonably centered strike here. Club head speed of 104 miles an hour and a ball speed of 156, 157 mile an hour. And you can see here on the strike location, 8 millimeters, slightly lower than the middle of the face, and 5 millimeters slightly towards the toe. So that is slightly off center and slightly low on the face. But we've got a good ball speed there, so it's not actually that far from a center strike. We've got an angle of attack +1, and a pretty good spin rate there, about 2,500 revs. So now let's compare that to an off-center strike. So here's one that we caught at the heel. Now, can you see how the ball speed here, so the ball speed on the right-hand side of the screen, how that has dropped down dramatically. So we had a ball speed previously of 156, 157 miles an hour, 104 mile an hour club head speed, okay? So the ball speed has dropped over 10 miles an hour from just a reduction of 1.5 mile an hour club head speed. So that's a considerable drop in ball speed, and that's really going to affect the distance the ball goes. And it just goes to show here, this shot carried 236 yards, whereas the previous shot carried 257 yards. Okay, so that's a difference in a total distance. 285 yards total the first shot went, 256 yards total the heel strike went. So difference in 30 yards is pretty enormous in a drop of 1.5 mile-an-hour clubhead speed. So you can that just goes to show that strike has a greater effect on the distance the ball goes, really, than clubhead speed, because you can have a high clubhead speed, and if you're missing the middle of the club face, the ball's not going to go very far. Another thing to see here is the shape, the curvature the balls had. Now, the path was what, four left, and the club face was actually closed to that path, and that's due to this strike. So the strike here has closed the face up, so you would think the ball would go way left. Well, actually, the club face has helped us here because it struck out the heel. That's made the club face close a little bit, but the bulge on the club face has curved that ball towards the centre of the target. So you can see here we haven't actually missed the target by that much. So now let's take a look at a toe strike here, and let's go to this shot here. So you can see here we've struck it out the toe, 22 millimeters towards the toe, but dead in line with the centre of the face, but 22 millimeters out the toe. So path this time was 3 to the right. Club face 2 degrees open to that path. Okay, and that is again due to the strike. So due to striking it out the toe, that's whipped the club face open slightly, but then the bulge on the club face has curved that ball back to the middle of the target. Let's talk again about ball speed. So 146 miles an hour ball speed, because we've missed the middle of the club face. So again, that ball speed's dropped over 10 mile an hour. The ball's only carried 232, so we are 25 yards down on carry on a centered strike. So I can't really stress enough how important a centered strike is, and one of the best ways to practice a centered strike is just to spray the club face with some athlete's foot spray. Make sure you get the powder spray, and spray the club face with that, and just hit some shots and just try and hit it out the toe, try and hit it out the heel, try and hit it out the middle. You can see from the screen here, it's actually taken me a fair few attempts to get these strikes here. It's a good thing to practice, seeing if you can strike out the heel and out the toe, and it actually does move your path a little bit as well when you're moving these strikes over. So it is a really good thing to practice. When I was striking out the heel, I found that I was swinging more left, and then to strike out the toe, I found I had to swing more into out to get the toe strike. So it's really interesting doing these tests and doing these challenges. And if you are fortunate enough to be able to get access to a TrackMan, many golf clubs rent them out, and you can check your strikes as well and the distances the ball's going on a TrackMan. So it's really useful, but it does really show here how important a centered strike is to help maximize distance. So now then, let's have a little chat about spin loft. Okay, so now let's talk about the spin loft and how this affects the distance the ball goes. Now, spin loft, like I mentioned at the start of the video, is the angle of attack, so the angle you're hitting down to the ball, and the loft, okay, at impact, so the dynamic loft at impact. It's the difference of that gap. Now, that really affects how far the ball will go, because if you're hitting down, let's say it's like 6 degrees down into the ball, and you've got a really great loft, so you're kind of effectively doing that into the shot, then that's not going to put much force behind the ball. And in effect, if you're hitting way up to the ball, okay, with not much loft, okay, then that ball's going to travel quite low and you're not going to get the carry. So it's important to get the gap right. So let's hit a few shots and we'll do some testing on the TrackMan, and we'll chat a little bit about what we're finding in here, and the differences the spin loft can have on the distance that you hit the ball. Okay, so this is really interesting here. So you can see how the bottom right hand corner here, the spin loft. So we've got 25 degrees of spin loft here. In fact, I was worried that this shot was going to pop up and over the net. Looking at the dynamic loft, that's 22 degrees. That part of that has it's to do with the way it's struck on the club face. High on the face is going to increase the loft that you have at impact, because the loft is greater on the driver at the top of the face. Our angle of attack was 2 on the down. I tried to get more on the down than that. And to move my angle of attack, all I did was move the ball position further back in my stance, and that made me hit down into it more. But you see here, so how that spin loft is a big angle. So the angle between the angle we hit down into the ball and the loft of the club at impact is great. Okay, so it's 25.1 because we've got a dynamic loft of 22 and angle of attack of 2, which has made the dynamic loft at 25. Now, if we then take a look at a shot where the dynamic loft is lower, so we've got a 12-degree dynamic loft here. So we had an angle of attack of +5 and a dynamic loft of 17, which makes a spin loft at 12. Okay, so that has resulted in a good sort of distance in carry, so 264 yards in carry, a ball speed of 155. If you look at how much the ball speed dropped when we increased that spin loft, so ball speed is down at 133. So to help you increase your distance, it's important to match up your angle of attack with your dynamic loft. Now, if you have a low club head speed, you do need a higher launch angle to help you get your maximum distance. Okay, so if you're down kind of the 70 to 80 mile an hour club head speeds, then you do need to make sure you have a high launch angle for greater carry distance. Now, let's just take another look at another example of the spin loft here. So here we've got angle attack of -4. Dynamic loft wasn't up a great deal, so up at about 13.5, but it's the angle attack here which has made that carry distance down a little bit shorter than what it was in the best carry. So it's 22 yards shorter. Club head speed, let's see the club head speed. So club head speed identical, so we had 104.7 miles an hour on both shots, but due to the angle attack being steeper, strike location being a little bit higher, okay, and dynamic loft being greater, this has made the distance of the ball much shorter, about 20 yards shorter. So that's why that spin loft is really important to get your sort of maximum distances here. Just if you're hitting down into the ball and you've got a great loft, then you're not going to put much force into the ball. You're also going to increase the spin rate. Look at the difference of spin rate here. We got 4,200 spin rate because of this increased spin loft. We look at this one here, so we've got the angle attack on the up by 5 degrees, dynamic loft at 17, so that's around about 12 spin loft. So that's going to bring that spin rate down. Okay, so we've got that spin rate down at 2,700 revs. So can you see how strike and spin loft have a big effect on the distance you hit the ball? So now let's have a look at club head speed and see what difference that also has on how far you hit the ball. So let's take a look here on Trackman University at how your angle of attack can affect how far the ball goes. So we've got a club head speed of 94 miles an hour here, angle of attack of 0, and the carry distance is 222 yards. So now let's move that angle of attack down to -5. Remember, we were at 222 yards with the angle of attack of 0. We've gone down to 210 yards, so you've lost 12 yards in carry just by hitting down into the ball by 5 degrees. Now let's go up by 5 degrees, and remember it was 222 yards in the carry distance, and it's now 232 yards. We've gained 10 yards of carry without changing the club head speed. We're assuming this is a centered strike, and we've just hit up on the ball by 5 degrees. So that's how much of a difference that angle attack can have on how far the ball goes. Now this would have launched the ball higher, so it's launched it at 16 degrees. Now let's see what at -5, launch that at 11 degrees. So angle attack plays a huge part in how far the ball goes, and you can just change the angle of attack by moving ball position and your spine tilt. So to hit down into the ball, you want to move that ball position back in your stance slightly. To hit up on the ball, move it forward in your stance. With a driver, ideally you want it kind of in line with your left foot, but also your spine tilt. So if you're tilting towards target, you're probably going to hit down into the ball. So you want to make sure that you tilt away from target slightly, and then through impact, you're still tilting slightly away from target. And then that's going to help you hit up on the ball a bit. But you can access this TrackMan University yourself. It's free, and it's a great software to educate yourself on the game. And by knowing more about the game, it can only help you to become a better golfer. Okay, so now let's talk about clubhead speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the numbers on the TrackMan. After I've hit a few, I'm going to try and hit some at the slower speeds and at the higher speeds, and we'll just have a look at the differences in the distance that the ball goes compared to the clubhead speeds. I'm going to try and swing some kind of around the 70 mph mark and try and go up to about 110. I can't go much higher than that because I haven't got that in the tank. Fortunately, I'm pretty efficient with how I strike the ball, which is why I can get it out there a reasonable distance to the speed that I can swing it at. I'm not kind of fortunate enough to be able to swing at the high clubhead speeds that some of the people I play against can. We're working on it by trying to change a few things in the swing to build up that clubhead speed as well. So let's hit a few and we'll see the difference in the speeds. Okay then, so this is really interesting actually, looking at the clubhead speed here. So I swung this at 67.4 miles an hour, you can see down in the bottom part of the screen. The club face was a bit close to the path, so the ball did go left. But it is saying here that if you look at the blue part of the screen, that was an optimal shot. So with my clubhead speed, without increasing clubhead speed or angle of attack, then that is the optimal distance that I can hit this ball. Let's look at the next shot. So we swung this one at 77 miles an hour, and it's saying actually that I could have hit that another sort of 8 yards further in carry distance because my ball speed was down. Ball speed was down because we've missed the middle of the club face. We've hit it very much out the top of the club face. So if we had moved that more to the centre, then that would probably have gone the optimal distance. But again, club face was closed to the path. I actually found it very difficult to keep that club face square to target, swinging it a lot slower. When I sped up, then I actually hit my shots a lot straighter, which is interesting actually. So let's show you the arrow there. So you can see there, I've swung at 77 miles an hour, and I've almost missed the planet left. Let's go to the next shot. So this one was at 85 miles an hour. We're getting a little bit straighter now, starting to hit a bit straighter. Gone up to 186 yards. So see, with the 67 miles an hour was 135 yards. 77 miles an hour was 160 yards. This is carry. 85 miles an hour went up to 186 yards. Nearly optimal there with the distance. Ball seems down a little bit. I don't know if it picked up this strike. Let's have a little look. Yeah, so just a tad higher in the face, not really. So ball seems just down a fraction on that one. Let's go back to direction. So the next drive was 92 miles an hour. So we're getting a little bit quicker here. That was 214 yards carry. That was optimal. You can see how all the orange arrows are along those blue dashes there. So that's saying we are optimal there. All our numbers. It was a good spin on that shot. Good launch angle. Spin loft was about perfect there, at about 15 degrees. So our angle of attack and the loft of the club at impact, so our dynamic loft was matching up nicely there for that club head speed. So then let's go. So that's a 90 mile an hour shot again. So it wasn't optimal. The spin rate was low actually. So that may have been strike again. Let's have a look. No, it's pretty central on the strike there. So I'm not too sure why spin rate was down on that one. So then let's move on to the next one. So we went up a little bit faster here again. So we've jumped from 91 mile an hour up to 105 miles an hour. So quite a big jump in speed there. So the difference in distance there, that was 261 yards in the distance there. So it's quite interesting seeing the differences, how the distance, how far the distance the ball goes jumps relative to how fast the club head speed is, and the ball speed jumping up as well. Then I did swing a bit fast at the ball. Well, this last one was, what, let's say, so 8 yards, 7 yards further than the 105 mile an hour swing. So this was 108 miles an hour, this swing. Ball speed nearly 160 miles an hour. But again, now we're starting to get inconsistent with the orange arrows here, starting to jump up to a high spin rate, sort of low ball speed, probably because we're misstriking it a little bit as well. To get that 108 mile an hour, I had to really feel like I was jumping at those ones. Couldn't quite get up to the 110. I felt comfortable and it felt efficient at the 105 mile an hour club speed. It is good to train your speed as well at the range. Maybe your last sort of, if you've got 15 balls left, maybe do 5 of those. Really trying to go for it, really try and sort of push off the ground, use your force, use the energy in your feet to create more club head speed. Make sure you are completing your shoulder turn. I find one of the most common things when I'm teaching people is they don't actually turn enough in their shoulders, and it's amazing the difference once they do get a full shoulder turn, how much more club head speed they can create in the golf swing. So that was an interesting test there. Interesting to see the difference in yardages on those different club head speeds, and your strike and your spin loft, how much all of those combined affects how far that ball goes. So I hope you enjoyed seeing these numbers, seeing these stats, and I hope you can put some of this into your own game and see if you can increase your distances, perhaps by changing your spin loft, the impact. So making sure you're hitting up on the ball without producing too much loft on the driver by keeping that loft down. Also have a look at your strike, see where you're hitting the strikes on each of your drives with using that athlete's foot spray, the powder spray, and see if you can just play around your club head speed. So you can increase your club head speed without losing ball speed. So that means making sure that the strike stays at the middle of that face. So if you enjoyed the video and you want to see some more, then hit the subscribe button, and if you've liked this video, then hit that little bell button just to say that you've liked it, and feel free to comment any questions you like in the comment box and we can get more videos out there for you.